Welcome back to the channel, guys. This is VIN 2019. It's not a 2019, this is a 2017. 2017 paint code 083, which is ultra white, white with gold flake, with LA30 red interior. White with red is the most common interior combination for these cars, so this is no different. It is white with red. Fun fact, this is the very first 2017 car that was produced for North America, not just US 49, not Canada, Hawaii, Puerto Rico. This is the first one for 2017. Does it add any value? No, but kind of a cool fun fact. It's the very first car that was equipped with the adaptive dampers for the US market and so on. So, you know, kind of a special car in that regard. So this car is in Georgia. It's been a Georgia car its entire life. It has 64,000 miles, plus or minus a little bit. Has not been driven a whole lot in the last couple of years, but the current owner has owned it for about the last 6 or 7 years, and it is currently off market, but he is getting ready to put it on the market. So he's doing some things service-wise and things like that to get it ready for sale. When you see this car come up for sale, you'll now know what the story is. But with this owner's permission, I have done a deep dive on his car, so that's what you're going to see here. And you know, he's just kind of making sure it's where it needs to be, and I think it's pretty close. And so you'll see here in a minute. Another thing with this car is it has option D7 checked, which is the courtesy delivery direct to Toyota or Lexus, and that basically means that Lexus corporate owned it at first. It may or may not have been titled. In this case, it was not titled by them. It doesn't look like it was a driving school car, and it doesn't look like they did anything else with it other than for maybe about 4 months, they probably took it around to shows and events showing the brand new 2017 Lexus. Since this was the first one, there was not a pre-production 2017 that I've discovered. So this is probably the car that traveled around to shows, things like that, events, for at least four months. So production statistics, as I said, white with red, the most common. Out of the 2,348 cars, 648 of them were ultra white. Of those 648, 361 had LA30 red interior. So this is the most common color combination you could get. It is a 1 out of 10 on the rarity scale. 2017 specifically, 115 out of the 342 cars produced for 2017 were 083 ultra white. 63 had LA30 interior. So at its rarest, this car is one of 63. In the GSF world, as common as they come. Carfax, Epic VIN, and AutoCheck. So Carfax shows this as a 2-owner, no accident car. Epic VIN shows this as a 2-owner, no accident car. And AutoCheck also shows this as a 2-owner, no accident car. So I think it is safe to assume this is a 2-owner, no accident car, and it backs up the story of what the owner told me. He bought it certified pre-owned through a dealer from the original owner. The original owner was a service technician at a Porsche dealer right next to the Lexus dealer that he bought it from. And he has owned it since 2019. So here it is, almost the end of 2025. So he's owned it 6+ years. Previous sales, so the in-service date on this car is October 17th, 2016, and the dealer had it since October 2016, but Lexus had control of it for about 4 months, and then it finally went on sale at the same dealer that originally dealer prepped it 4 months later in Georgia for $88,000. Looks like in around April of 2017, June of 2017, and it looks like it finally sold in July of 2017. So roughly 5 months since it was first listed for sale, but 9 months since the dealer had it. So however you want to look at that, regardless, these cars did not sell well when they were new, not at that price point, because the dealers didn't want to discount them. So when this car was sold new, it had like 59 miles. So I don't think that Lexus used it as a driving school car. It was probably just on and off of a trailer or to and from events, around shows, things like that, but was not a driving school car. And then it was for sale October of 2019, $52,000 with 46,000 miles, still in Georgia. Certified pre-owned at a Lexus dealer, and that is where the current owner acquired it, as I said earlier. And now here it is, the end of November 2025, where he's appearing to get ready to sell it, but it is not officially for sale just yet. As I said, 2-owner, no accident car. The owner confirms that he is indeed the second owner. He bought it from a dealer, certified pre-owned, and from the original owner, who was a service technician at a Porsche dealer right next to it. And he said the guy just babied it. It was his baby. Did a few little mods to it, mostly cosmetic, and so we'll go over that here in a minute. So now onto the photos. So this car has CKS coilovers, which are pretty desirable in the GSF community because it is the only set of coilovers that actually works with the active damping suspension on the 2017 through 2020 cars. You can run any other coilovers on these cars, but you will have a light on the dash that you won't be able to turn off. So this car having that, it makes the computer happy, and it's adaptive damping. So that's pretty nice. Those shocks have been discontinued. They are rebuildable and serviceable, but this car has it and you can't buy them anymore. So those coilovers are on Swift springs. It also has an aftermarket carbon fiber wheel, carbon fiber shift knob, a couple aero parts, but it is on stock exhaust, and it has 10mm spacers in the rear. So a few cosmetic mods. It says it has a K&N filter, and that's really it. The owner also told me that the car has been paint corrected and ceramic coated with G-Technic 9-year ceramic coating. So another bonus there. Should be easy to keep clean, easy to wash. On the 17 through 20s, a lot of the standard things that were on the 16s then became optional. Heads-up display was one of them. This car is optioned with the heads-up display. It's optioned with the Mark Levinson stereo, which like 98% of these cars have. And it does not have the split polished wheels. That's a bad example. It has gray wheels, which are the base model wheels. It's still the same actual wheel. It's just they're gray instead of hand polished and painted. I don't see the carbon fiber delaminating anywhere, and the owner confirmed this, that the carbon fiber is doing fine. It's been in a warm climate its whole life, so I would suspect if you're gonna take this car, if you're gonna buy this car and take it up to the north, cold climate, the very first 4-degree evening you have where it's parked outside, the carbon fiber, I would not be surprised if it delaminates because it's all original, but right now it's fine. Overall, the car presents extremely well. The owner said that it does have some very minor pits and chips on the front of it, but that's to be expected with a car with 60,000 miles. Again, no problems there, but it's something that he's at least disclosing and letting you know about. So for the price, I really can only go off of if it was stock. And so, it's just basically coilovers and a couple cosmetic mods. So, it's not gonna affect the value that much. So a 2017 here at the end of November 2025, almost the beginning of December 2025, with 60,000 miles, this car is 64,000. These cars are selling in like the low to mid 50s. And so, the previous price that he paid $52,000. He may have paid less than that, but that was the asking price. That's kind of where it needs to be now. And so like the last 6 or 7 years, you could almost have driven this car for free. $52,000, $53,000 is kind of where the market is on this for a 2017 with 64,000 miles. And so I think that's probably where I would expect to see the car priced at. If I was a retail dealer and the car needed nothing, if it didn't need brakes, didn't need tires, didn't need anything else, it's all up to date on service, $52,995. That's kind of where I would expect to see this car priced at a dealer. But yeah, this is a perfect example of when you bought these cars at their cheapest, 2019, 2020, that you could basically drive these cars for free for like the last 5 or 6 years, and this is evidence here. Minus running costs, minus insurance and inflation and everything else, but on paper, you've driven this car for free and owned it for the last 5, 6, 7 years for free. So now onto the service history. The owner said that most of his servicing is done at an independent third-party dealer, and it doesn't report to Carfax, but he does have all the receipts to show and provide for anybody that's interested. So I'll get into that here at the end because it was, of course, first Lexus dealer serviced, and then under his ownership, some of that was done, and so I'll get into that. The first entry of note is November of 2017, a new rearview mirror because it had some blue spots on it, so they replaced that. I have seen that on a couple other cars, but not out of the ordinary, and it was under warranty. March of 2018, the right rear shock was noted as leaking, and they also replaced 4 new tires at 16,000 miles. Also in March of 2018, the JLB recall was done, so that is the high pressure fuel pumps. Most of these cars have that addressed and done, so that's good. November of 2018 at 29,000 miles, install the customer supplied wheel spacers and noted as pads and tires are getting low, so another 15,000 miles and it's time for brakes and tires. The next entry, also in November of 2018, is aim the headlights. They are too low. And I normally don't even talk about that in the service history, but here's why. 3 days later, headlight system malfunction. Reinitialize the headlight ECU, and they say now the headlights are aiming at the trees. So they're aimed all the way up, and it's not letting them adjust them. Okay, 2 days later, it's back in again for headlight malfunction. 1 week later, headlight malfunction. 3 weeks later, 31,000 miles, front pads, turn the rotors, install the carbon fiber wheel and paddles. That's I'm assuming the wheel that you see on the car now. And the headlight malfunction warning is on yet again. So that's like 4 different times that it's been on. And then 1 day later, the steering wheel was removed again because the airbag clock spring, the spiral assembly, the spiral cable was damaged when they removed and replaced it. So they replaced that. And Lexus agreed to goodwill replace both front headlights at 50-50, which means the owner pays 50%, Lexus pays 50%. Even though it's pretty obvious that this case started when they went to go adjust the headlights. It really should be on Lexus here, but at least it got covered 50%. You know, at $4,000 a headlight, that was still probably a $4,000+ service because you had to remove the bumper, reprogram the headlights, all that. There's a lot going on there, but at least this car has new headlights and it doesn't appear to have returned beyond this point. January of 2019, they reinstalled the factory springs and removed the lowering springs, and also noted that the left rear shock was leaking. So the right rear shock was leaking and replaced. Now the left rear was leaking, but it wasn't replaced here. And then it looks like a few days later, they went ahead and did that. And they noted that the right rear was leaking again. The early shocks on these cars, when they were replaced, the replacement parts still leaked. And so the defective internal oil seal that the 17s through 20s had, I don't know when the updated part number came out, but it seemed like the early ones, even when they got replaced, they still leaked again. And sometimes it didn't even make it 5,000 or 10,000 miles. But that's almost irrelevant now because this car has CKS coilovers. So it doesn't even have the factory shocks that were prone to leaking anyway. So you don't even have to look at that. September of 2019, 45,000 miles, they noted a misfire and power loss and a long cranking time. It doesn't say what's done. However, my experience with looking at all these other service histories is it's probably a weak battery that can do that. Batteries, so these cars are hard on batteries, and when they get low voltage, they do some weird things. And you know, TVD malfunctions, headlight malfunctions, all kinds of weird things. The computers in these cars do not like low voltage. And so that's probably what's going on here because it doesn't seem like there's anything else that returned after that. 1 day later though, also in September of 2019, the KLG reprogramming was done. It's a customer service program. That's for the GPS. You know, it shows you if you're on the main road, it may show you off to the side or something so that it corrects that. And the front door lock actuator had failed and was replaced. Also a very common issue on the GS in general, not just specific to the GSF. The driver's front door lock, for some reason, the door lock actuator fails and it's like a $400 replacement. So that was done. So it looks like after that, it was traded in. October of 2019, 46,000 miles, certified pre-owned prep, 2 tires and an alignment. So after that, there's not a whole lot. But the last service at the Lexus dealer was March of 2023 at 59,000 miles. Oil change, they noted that the fender liner was loose and they just reinstalled a clip. That does happen on these. On my orange car, I've had to do that. But the owner tells me that, as I said earlier, an independent shop has serviced this car for the most part, and he has all the receipts to provide. And he's also said that the 60,000 mile service has been done, which is the big one, the spark plug. So that's done. So what hasn't been done is the TVD service, the torque vectoring differential, and the transmission service, either a drain and fill or a full service. But the owner had said that the mechanic had said it doesn't need it. So I would suggest otherwise, but if you're gonna buy this car and he hasn't done it, I would do the transmission service and I would do the TVD service right away. Really, in the past few years, the owner said he hasn't put a whole lot of miles on it, like 3,000 miles in the last several years. And so that's obviously probably why he's selling it, because it's always been kind of an extra car. And so it just has done a lot of sitting. What hasn't been done, HVAC servo sweep. You know, if this car is having any issues with the HVAC, make sure it's fully warmed up, set one side to hot, one side to cold, and cycle through the defrost, the head, the rear, the feet, the fresh air, the recirculate, all of that, and then switch. Make sure everything responds. It doesn't just stay cold air, because that seems to be usually how they fail. The servos underneath the dash, some of them are expensive to replace because it requires the dash to be removed. And so it seems to be like it affects cars in the colder climates a whole lot more than it does. You know, this is a Georgia car, pretty mild climate. or hot climate. But I don't see that. I don't see the ZLZ being done, and that is the sticky deformed delaminating dash. Sometimes it covers the two front carbon fiber pieces, depending on if you get a dealer that wants to play and go to bat for you or not. But this car's in-service date was October 17th of 2016, so you have until October 17th of 2026 to get that covered free of charge by Lexus, out of warranty or out of this extended plan, customer service program. It's over $1,000. The part's only like $100, but it's a lot of labor. But I would say the TVD and the transmission aside, it really doesn't need much in the way of maintenance. I would look at the tires, the tire date codes, and the brakes. And so speaking of that, the owner said that it has new front tires last year, so probably 1,000 or 2 miles on the front tires. He said it needs rear tires, and he may address that, and it needs rear brakes and maybe front brakes soon as well. That's pretty standard on these cars. These cars almost always need brakes and tires, and they don't last long, 15, 20,000 miles, and then you have to replace them again. So it's, whether the owner replaces it before he sells it, I recommended to him that he probably, if you're going to ask, the market price, $52,000, $53,000, kind of stand out above everything else that's for sale out there, have tires and brakes done, and it's ready to go. You'll have to do the TVD, you have to do the transmission, but the rest of it looks like it's pretty much ready to go. The carbon fiber, it looks in good shape. The valley plate has not been done, but it's not leaking. The last time he had it inspected, I don't remember when he told me that he last had it inspected, but it has been inspected and it was not leaking. However, you will need to put money down in the future, or put money aside in the future to get the valley plate done, because that will be something that will become an issue in the future, but obviously not leaking right now. So would I buy this car? Absolutely. As long as, in my opinion, if the brakes and tires were done, I have no problem doing transmission service, TVD service, bonus points if that's done too, but the car's got some tasteful mods. It has some rare coilovers that are pretty desirable in the GSF community. It has no accidents, and it's a Southern car, so it hasn't been winter driven. And so, the usual things. Lower control arm bushings, things like that, you probably want to look at those. This car being lowered, you may want to look at getting the adjustable rear links or the front upper control arms for these cars. Otherwise, you will wear out the tires pretty quickly if you're going to daily drive this or put any significant mileage on it, because it being lowered, the front and rear tires are going to have negative camber, and you're going to wear out the insides of the tires pretty quickly. And these tires already don't last a long time, but if you put a lot of negative camber on them, you're gonna wear them out even faster. So that is something to probably keep in mind, or put it back to stock height and you won't have those problems. But front lower control arm bushings, probably still something that I would look into doing. Valley plate, there's really not a whole lot else it needs. I mean, it's pretty well sorted, pretty well up to date. And as far as all of the other cars that are out there for sale right now, this one definitely would stand out, and where it needs very little. Most of these cars that come up for sale, they just need so much or catching up on service, specifically that 60,000 mile service, and it looks like it's already done on this car. It has not been serviced at the dealer, in the last several years much, but it has been serviced, and it's been serviced properly. So, I really don't see any red flags here. But when you see it pop up for sale, it's definitely going to be one that's worth looking at right away. So anyway, that's what I've got, VIN 2019. I hope that helps. When you guys see this up for sale, I would jump on it pretty quick. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you soon.